Thank you. Ruth McGuire, followed by Elaine Smith.
Presiding Officer, as the Minister said in opening, progress towards male and female equality has been made, but we're nowhere near there yet. With no amendments into the government motion, it seems we have cross-party consensus on upholding and protecting the rights of women and girls. Good. The rights of women and girls are fundamental human rights that have been fought for long and hard and should be defended vigorously. That fight is not over. There's still so much to do. Female genital mutilation, prostitution and sexual slavery. Globally, women and girls are being refused access to education and are trapped in conflicts in which rape is used as a weapon of war. Domestic violence is still a terrorising reality for far too many. Around the world, sex-selected abortions are rising. The number of deaths related to pregnancy and childbirth is needlessly high, and women and girls are prevented from making deeply personal choices about their reproductive health care. In 2020, women and girls in Scotland should be under no illusion that the fight for women's liberation is won. And I would go as far as to say that in some ways the world feels less equal and more dangerous for women and girls, not safer. Of course, progress has been made in many areas, and I wholeheartedly welcome that. At a time when the spectrum of men's violence against women seems at epidemic proportions, I'm glad for the Scottish Government's action, both in terms of funding frontline services and legislation. I'm very proud of the groundbreaking legislation that criminalises psychological abuse, recognising the reality for victims and that the terror inflicted on them is not just physical and certainly not one-off events, but a continuum of coercive and controlling behaviour. That legislation will protect many women and girls. But we also have to talk about the increase in women and girls who are being killed and injured in violence that is claimed to be consensual. I agree with the We Can't Consent to This campaign, which does not believe that women can consent to their grievous injury or death, and which believes that they certainly do not invite male violence that kills them. The claim of sex game gone wrong must not become the new she was asking for it defence. There is work to be done there. At a time where girls and women in this country are at risk of undergoing the unnecessary and painful procedure with lasting health consequences, I'm glad that we have political consensus on the FGM bill, which when enacted will provide the option of protection orders, which female survivors have told us will help to keep girls and women safe from this particular affront to their human rights. But we also have to talk about the fact that women and girls affected need more than just protection orders. They need healthcare in a dignified and culturally appropriate setting, and not just for their maternity care. They need housing and they need support. There's work to be done there. And as long as female bodies are objectified, commodified and reduced to something to be bought and sold, used and traded, we will not have equality or justice, and women and girls will continue to suffer violence. At a time when Teen Vogue suggests prostitution as a job like any other to girls and young women, when the most common search criteria on a porn site are about abuses of women, abuses of girls, violence and rape, and sex for rent adverts can still be seen, I'm very grateful that the Scottish Government is clear on its position on the violence of prostitution, and importantly, is considering a more robust approach to tackling male demand for prostituted women and girls. I also welcome Minister Ashdenham's announcement this morning of a fund to do that, to challenge demand. But welcome as this is, there's further work around the sexualisation of culture and the joining up of the dots around the continuum of commercial sexual exploitation and violence. There's still work to be done. Women as a sex class do not have equality, and the fight is not over, not in this country and not globally. The rights of women and girls must be upheld, protected, advanced and defended vigorously. All humans have human rights, and as parliamentarians we have a responsibility as human rights defenders, a responsibility I know we all take very seriously. But to do the work we all agree needs to be done, and much of it outside this chamber, women must be free to gather and talk, to organise. They must be free to gather, free from the threat of violence, free from threats to their livelihoods. Talking about women's rights, prioritising women and girls, does not mean disregarding or not caring about the rights of others, but it may well mean difficult conversations, and we have to be honest that sometimes rights might appear to come into conflict. Pretending otherwise does everyone a disservice and brings us no closer to the equal society that we all want to see. Presiding Officer, I would just close by acknowledging all the work that's being done and saying that I'm willing to play my part in the much more work that needs to be done still.
Thank you, Ms Maguire.